Yeah, I'll start and then kick it to you for the introduction, Brittany. So my name is Steve. I am with the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship, and I'm the Awards Administration Director. And so I lead the team that designs the scholarships and determines how the selection process works, manages the eligibility process, and makes sure that everybody gets their money.
And I am Brittany Nielsen, the Marketing and Communications Manager at WSOS, and I work on sharing as much information as possible about our scholarships to try and get as many people, to reach as many people as we can so that they know about this great flexible funding that we have for all residents of Washington State. So very excited to be here with you, and Steve's going to share a bit about our scholarship.
Mm-hmm. And my hope is to talk for not that long, single-digit number of minutes, so that most of the time you can just ask any questions that you have. And Kevin, a question for you, which is it valuable if I put some slides on the screen, or should I just talk right through?
I think I would look, I'm visual, so I would like to see you put slides on the screen also.
All right, so I did just try, and it said the host has disabled screen share. Oh no, I got it. Okay, never mind. You gave it to me.
Yes.
Doing it right now.
Okay.
You were too quick. I'll have you in one moment. And I think that you should now see my screen. Is that right? All right. So our fundamental goal as an organization, the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship, is to build pathways into high demand jobs for Washington residents. Our program came together back in 2011 with businesses across the state and the legislature coming together and saying, you know, we want to make sure that these world-class jobs that we have are filled by people from Washington, because we know that the people who are most likely to stay in those jobs long-term are the people that come from our communities. And so whether that's manufacturing, whether that's agriculture, whether that's tech, whether that's healthcare, we want to build as much talent we can within our communities. They can take the jobs in our communities. And so to do that, we have currently 2 different scholarship programs, and soon to come a third. And so the one we've had to date, starting back in 2012, is our baccalaureate scholarship, abbreviated as BAS. And that's the one that many people are most familiar with. So we offer scholarship funding for people pursuing a 4-year degree in STEM or healthcare, and they can receive up to $22,500 on their path to that degree. They also get support services along the way. And so we know that for a lot of people, particularly if they're the first in their family to have gone to college, that the money is helpful, but the connections that you get, just knowing how to navigate a college campus, knowing how to, like, what you should be thinking about in order to build up a resume while you're in school so that by the time you graduate, you're ready to go into one of those jobs. We offer services to connect people to industry mentors and to give them that kind of job training so that by the time they come out, they're ready to go right into a career in their field. And then the next one is the Career and Technical Scholarship. And so that one we launched last year. So we're in the 2nd year of operation right now. And this is one where we can support people pursuing professional technical degrees. And so certificates, apprenticeships, associate degrees, for anybody that plans on finishing with one of those degrees and not going on to get a bachelor's degree. If they plan on transferring, they stick with the baccalaureate program. But if they're not planning on transferring, they just want to go right into the workforce when they've got their professional technical credential, the Career and Technical Scholarship is the one for them. And that gives people $1,500 every single quarter for the duration of their program. So whether they're doing a one quarter, CDL program, or whether they're doing a 2-year nursing program or even longer nursing program, this is the scholarship that they can use. And it's specifically to be used at one of the state's community and technical colleges. And so it doesn't support people going to one of the private community technical colleges, but it does support the 34 public ones across the state, including all their satellite campuses. And what's brand new this year is the Rural Jobs Program, that one that ticks down below it. And the Rural Jobs Program is a part of the Current Technical Scholarship. And the legislature a few years ago, just the other year, approached us and said, you know, for somebody who lives in rural Washington, if you want to get a 4-year degree, it's, you know, you do the same thing that anyone else does, which is move towards your campus for those 4 years, maybe come home over the summers. But if you want a professional technical degree, you're usually in your 20s, your 30s, beyond. You get a family, you need to work while you're in school, and you can't just pick up and move when you're trying to get your associate degree, you're trying to get your certificate. And so they asked the question, what could it look like to build a scholarship that made it more accessible for somebody who lives 45 minutes away, an hour away, further away from the nearest community and technical college? Like, what could it look like to build a scholarship that makes it more possible? And so that's the Rural Jobs Program. It'll support 400 people over the next few years, over the next 5 years. And it does two things. The first thing it does is we connected with people in every single region across this state and said, what are the highest demand jobs in the rural areas in your region? You know, so not just in Walla Walla, not just in Wenatchee, not just in Spokane, but when you're, you know, an hour or more away, what are the high demand jobs? And what are the short-term credentials that line up with those jobs? Because you just can't sustain a 2-year commute back and forth when you got to drive an hour or more. And so what are the quicker credentials that people can get so they can power through that commute for 1 to 2 quarters so that they can stay living in their hometown and bring that credential back to their hometown so that they can take those jobs. And the Rural Jobs Program, so has a specific set of programs that are unique to each region for what you're allowed to pursue. It is eligible strictly to people who live in a rural county. So that's pretty much every county except for the ones in the Puget Sound corridor. Clark County and Spokane County is not included in the state's definition of a rural county, but all the counties around it would be. And so any student in there would be eligible for it. And what they receive is $3,500 in their first quarter, $2,500 in their next quarter, and $2,000 per quarter thereafter. And so the reason it's so high is because we know that there's a real barrier to entry to even begin, take that first step for that first quarter. You may need to fix up your car or even get a second car. You may need to buy a laptop. You may need to invest in getting a hotspot and investing in like some pretty expensive internet so that you can stay connected to college and submit your assignments sometimes from further away if it's a program that allows that. So we give basically as much money as we can without exceeding people's cost of attendance in that first quarter. So $3,500, then $2,500, and then $2,000 per quarter thereafter, because our assumption is that if somebody's in a longer term program, you know, when they're living an hour away from the nearest campus, they've probably found a way to do a lot of it online. And it's got to cost at least, or it costs roughly an extra $500 per quarter just to invest in that internet, to make sure you have a very good connection so that you can not skip a beat when staying up with all your classes and your assignments. So those are the main scholarships, and all the ones that are available for people coming straight from high school. The graduate scholarship I just put on here to let you know that it's something that's coming. It's strictly for somebody who has finished or is about to finish their 4-year degree and is going into an advanced healthcare degree. And we're specifically focused on people pursuing a doctorate of nurse practitioner in behavioral health and going into, and who plan on serving in rural communities. And just context on numbers, baccalaureate program, there are 750 recipients every single year. The current technical scholarship, there's 550 at minimum. In the Rural Jobs Scholarship, for this year, it's 50 your very first year, but typically it'll be 85 recipients per year. And people are automatically considered for the Royal Job Scholarship when they apply for the Career and Technical Scholarship. So there's no separate application process they have to go through. We just see whether they're from a rural area going into an eligible program, and they're automatically considered. One thing I want to call out about the aid that we offer is that most of our recipients are like at an income level where they're already fully funded in terms of their tuition and fees is often fully covered by the state. But our funding is allowed to go above tuition, and it almost always does. It almost always goes to the cost of living, the cost of attendance for somebody who's in school. And so you're allowed to use it for transportation, books, food, childcare, housing, whatever it is you need to survive while you're in school. And so it goes above and beyond what most funding that comes from a state-like program is allowed to do. And I've already spoken to these details enough, so I'm actually going to jump ahead and go to what's the very last slide, which is just to say the thing that we're looking for from you all, besides just to make sure you all know about the opportunity. But we know that this year, given how unpredictable it is about whether people can be in person, whether they'll be able to stay in person, just the difficulty in reaching our students this year, there's a lot of uncertainty. And we want to make sure that that doesn't in any way interrupt people's ability to plan for the future and awareness of opportunities like this. And just year in, year out, when we ask our scholars who apply, we ask every single applicant who applies, what is it that made you apply for this scholarship? And it's about like 80, 85%. There is some personal champion, whether it's a counselor, principal, teacher, superintendent. It is a individual who asked them to and stays on their case until they actually get it done. Because we know that asking once often doesn't do it, but somebody that says, I need you to tell me that this got done. And that is most of the applicants who end up submitting. And so I threw in a link there so that if you don't already get notified every time these scholarships open, you can just go there, put in your email address, or secretly put in any of your staff's email address, but it'll make sure that you all get notified every time our baccalaureate scholarship opens up, every time our career and technical scholarship opens up, so that you know what the eligibility criteria are, when people need to apply, what they need to do in order to take advantage of this opportunity. And with that, I'm just going to leave this on the screen so that that link stays there for you. And take any questions that you all have.
So Steve, I think my opening question would be eligibility. I'm sorry, Jessica, I jumped right in front of your hand raised there. Eligibility requirements.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So in order to be eligible, there are a few different criteria. One is income. So you need to be your family needs to be making 125% of the median family income or less. And that's statewide, not regionalized. And so you basically have to be low to middle income. Most people are eligible by the income measure. You need to graduate from high school in Washington State, or get your GED, or just have some high school credential in Washington State. You need to be eligible for in-state tuition when you apply and be going to a Washington State school. Whether it's public, private, doesn't matter for the baccalaureate program. And then if it's the Career and Technical Scholarship Program, it has to be one of those public career and technical, public community and technical colleges. And those are the biggest ones. There are other smaller ones, like you have to have submitted a FAFSA or WASFA. There are things that people do as a matter of course, but those are the ones that typically people just have to make sure they have done or think about before they apply.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jessica.
Two questions so far. One is there a preference to who's funded based off of the region that they're in? So you all are located on the west side of the state.
Mhm.
Is there any barriers for rural regions on the eastern side of the state of having a fair application process in terms of being selected? That's my first question.
I'll do that one first. So I don't let my forgetfulness get in the way. But there's no barrier to us. Like we have no special consideration for certainly anybody from the Puget Sound corridor. And in fact, like year in, year out, like population wise, the Seattle area is underrepresented. And it's actually the rest of the state that is more represented. And it is a big priority to us to make sure that stays the case, because this is a public-private program. So we're half funded by the state, half funded by businesses and individuals. And we want to make sure that like we have each year, that we have representation from every single legislative district, from all the counties, people going to all the different schools. And in fact, for the past, or at least last year, I think it was Garfield, Asotin, Lincoln, Yakima, and I think it was Skagit were a top 5 in terms of representation per capita. And so it is a priority to us to make sure, it's something we explicitly look at to make sure that there's no region that's kind of running away with all the seats. In terms of the Rural Job Scholarship, we actually explicitly make sure that the dollars are divided equitably by region based on its percentage of the rural population.
Wonderful, thank you. The other question I have is, I have a program that I'm doing in Stevens County with 4 school districts, rural school districts, and it's 7th, 8th, and 9th grade for health career pathways. So we have a full mentorship program and have been funded by Employment Security with the Career Connect Washington grant. And I'm about to develop the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade piece. And I'm wondering if there is a representative. I met with somebody from this organization for coffee when I was applying last year, and I was quickly just looking up the name, and I don't know the person's name, but is there a representative that can go out and speak to families? Because in rural communities, it's usually some of the barriers are families. They just, they want their child to raise cattle or whatever, as opposed to all the other opportunities they could have. So looking for a representative to speak to parents, families, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That is something that we wish we could go out and do the personal kind of student to student, family to family connection. But we're small and like too small to make sure that we can actually hit every corner of the state. And so that's actually one of the areas where we knew if we did start doing that, what would be most convenient is to do that in King County, in Pierce County. And if we did it, we knew we would actually we'd almost certainly be giving an advantage to the people who are most convenient to drive to. And so we cut that off 2 years ago, having seen that it was easy to fall into that trap. But it means that we don't at this point do the personal connection, usually directly to students and families. We instead try to reach kind of the train of trainer. Like we try to reach teachers who are going to be there year in, year out, who can then, as each year goes by, be the ones to reach this year's students, this year's families.
Well, is there like materials then, marketing materials, or things that can be reproduced to be given out?
Yeah.
On the website? Or?
Yeah, actually, Brittany, do you want to speak to it?
Yes. We have a lot of materials that we can send out if folks sign up through the link here that Steve's put on. I also am happy, like if anybody reaches out to Kevin to get our contact info, I'm happy to just email that to you directly. And we are available for virtual like presentation style meetings. So if you were able to get, a few folks together who wanted to hear from us and kind of walk through what we offer, that we are able to do. We just wouldn't be in person since we don't have enough staff to send everywhere. But yeah, I'm happy to help and support in any way I can by sharing materials and walking through what you're able to share and help you, like basically support you with the information you need.
How long is that presentation?
It can be as long as you want. It would just like my colleague Vanessa or I would do the meeting with you.
And then what age do you recommend? I mean, 10th, 11th grade, when they're starting to look at college as a possibility, do you recommend that this opportunity start to be layered into the thinking of youth?
Yeah, I mean, having worked with young people before, I think that's like, obviously we know when they get to 11th and 12th grade that they're thinking about that, but the sooner you can start talking about it, the better.
So like I have 155 students from Stevens County and their families in part of my program, and they're in 7th grade and 8th grade. Is that too soon to be able to say, hey, we're doing this with you. We're creating all these opportunities, and here is how you can, one of the paths you can go when you go to college. Here's one of the ways that you can help get funded. Is that too soon?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we would be happy to talk to anyone who's interested in learning about it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that like we've sometimes seen that like the details of like, this is what it is to be eligible, like those kind of things, they just forget. But if they like see the big picture of like, there's funding for this and like it can lead to these kind of things, especially when it's coupled with like, and here's somebody like in this town or in the next town over who like got this opportunity and look at what they're doing. Like that we've seen has been really memorable for somebody, 8th grade, 9th grade, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Other questions?
Well, thank you, Steve and Brittany, and